Hello and welcome to MANCAVE, where we have manly conversations, a safe space for men to talk about their experiences in life and what they're going through. I'm Eric Latif. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Twitter was lit with a conversation that was started by one man who spoke about the journey, the race towards the age of 40. So, as a man, what are you going through as you're heading towards your 40s? Are you thinking about what you've achieved? Are you thinking about what you want to achieve? Are you actually thinking that life begins at 40 and therefore it's time to cruise in life? Or do you have all those pressures coming together? Are you also feeling pressure from your family, from your friends, from the society that, oh, now you're approaching 40, what have you achieved, what have you done? Or is it 30s? Or maybe 20s? Or maybe 50s? In this episode of Man Cave, we ask, does a man have a biological clock? And our guest is Tim Kipchumba, who started this conversation on Twitter. Tim, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me at
And thank you for
MANCAVE.
starting the conversation as well on Twitter.
It was purely accidental though.
What did you tweet for those that missed it?
So I think as we entered towards, as we almost entered the new year, I shared about why, in fact, as men and more generally human beings, we should tell other men out there that you don't need to have made it by 40. And that, as a matter of fact, most of human success may take a little bit longer than we expect. And so I ended up saying, let's bust that myth. And so I spoke about myself, said how, in fact, I've not yet made it, even though people might think I should have made it. I've been fortunate in some sense. Got selected as a Mandela Washington Fellow, got selected as a top 40 under 40 at 31. I've spoken at UK Parliament through a program called British Leadership Future Leader Member. And then I've also done a couple of projects. We've done reasonably well in real estate and in solar. And so I felt that because of the level of public profile that I've gotten, especially around enterprise, solar, and more generally working with young people, I thought that I should really just demystify it. So I told people things like, I don't yet own a home in Nairobi. How, in fact, I'm not yet financially independent. How we still have struggles, and why, in fact, they should be kind to themselves. I think that was the tweet, and it turned out that many people resonated.
Were you speaking to other people or were you speaking to Tim Kipchumba?
I think I was speaking to myself. I think I was speaking to myself. I think part of it, I think it was two-pronged. It was purely accidental, honestly, but part of it was actually to reduce pressure on myself. Because I don't think that, I think that the pressure is two-way. Part of it is self-inflicted pressure. We want to go and go and go and go, because we men generally want to achieve. And unfortunately, a great part of our identity is what we have. It's not what we have become as human beings, it's what we have become with our careers, in society, with where we think we should have been. And then the other part of the pressure also is external pressure. People back home in Marakwet, I wouldn't convince people that I cannot raise, 20,000 shillings for a small fund drive there. So part of that also was selfish. It was like to say, listen, I'm just another guy trying to get by. We're doing really good work. We employ more than 200 young people and on, but it doesn't necessarily mean much because a great portion of that is invested in what we do. So I think, so it's true. I think I spoke partly for myself, and then I also spoke accidentally for other people.
Projected. Yeah. And it's good that you did that. So let's now take a step back and look at this Tim Kipchumba. You've just listed some of the things that you've achieved, named top 40 under 40 at the age of 31. You have spoken before the UK Parliament. You are a Washington Fellow, and a Mandela Fellow. You have other achievements. You have invested in real estate, in solar. You have been successful in some, you have flopped in others. But overall, you have something that you can define yourself by. Now, as you're approaching 40, did you ever sit back and look back and think, you know what, if I look at my childhood growing up in Elgeyo Marakwet, if I look at the challenges that I had in life, if I look at how I got to my 30s and what I had already done by my 30s, I was actually somebody. Have you ever sat back and thought, well, come on, Tim, we have made it?
I think that's you bring a really powerful thing. I have now, increasingly over the last, I used to journal before. I wrote 2 books in the past. One really did well, it did so well. Read by more than 300,000 high school students. But then as you hustle in this city and you try to get by, sometimes you forget to do that which you've just said, which is gratitude. Now, every day I write a small note to myself. It's very difficult to do journals, but I at least try to do 3 lines. Things I'm grateful for, things I'm currently doing now, and things that I learned today. And I cannot believe now I look back, I think I have a lot more to be grateful for. But if you had asked me when say in 1996, I was in the class 5, class 6, and we had a really, my dad had a really terrible road accident, and he ended up breaking his skull. And I remember my twin brothers arriving home, and they cried because they could barely recognize their dad. He had to be admitted several months at the ICU. And now in high school, we had to do a combination of a little bit of World Vision scholarship and my dad chipping in, only earning as little as 3,000. And then, just when we thought that would be enough, dad in 2012 contracted multiple myeloma, which the doctor told us is the fairest form of cancer you can ever ask for. But then within the year, he passed away. Yet, so, looking back, I don't think we dreamt of the level of success that I have enjoyed. At least the friendships, the accesses, the relationship, the learnings, the kind of work we do. I don't think we dreamt of it. In fact, the last thing that was on my mind was to be an entrepreneur. I always thought I might end up a journalist or maybe, build a career in public life. And so sometimes, I think sometimes we forget. Sometimes we forget to just remember and to chronicle where we've been, and then to be really grateful. Because if you are in the middle of this city, you barely sometimes realize how good things are for you as compared to what they could have been, or as compared to other people that didn't get the opportunities that I had. I was fortunate to get a scholarship through Strathmore University. I would not otherwise have afforded it, which was about 1.2 million shillings thanks to Guinness and East African breweries. And so I've been really fortunate. Postgraduate at Strathmore, I got a first class honors, and then went for my master's at Strathmore University. So I think I should be more grateful. I should be more grateful than sometimes we are able to.
When you actually look back. Now looking at the journey towards life. The journey through life. In your 20s, this is the point when you are going through university, you are doing very well, you're getting back to Strathmore to do your master's, and then you're opening up, you're becoming the team. And then in your 30s, this is your peak. This is when now you're consolidating all those things, for you to be able to hit your 40s. Did you feel any sort of pressure as you approached your 30s? And how would you compare the approach towards 30s and the approach towards 40s?
Yeah. I think mine was acute earlier. Mine was acute much earlier. My pressure began at 23, 24. My wife and I fell pregnant. We were still dating at the time. And so I now had a baby as I graduated. Just graduating and then got a baby. So it was really, really tough. It was a very difficult time. She didn't have a job. I barely had a job. It was during the post-election violence. I couldn't even come to Nairobi. As a matter of fact, the first 4 months we couldn't afford for me to stay with her. So she stayed with my parents. Thankfully, like she's really become like a soulmate, so it wasn't so much of a big problem for her. So 4 months in, I finally got a small job, earning 30,000 shillings. But then, you earn 30,000 shillings in Nairobi, and you live in Rongai, and then you've taken a small loan for your small brother who is going through college. I was barely making ends meet. As a matter of fact, I would ask our house girl at the end of the month, towards the end of the month, to loan me the 2,000-3,000 bob that she would earn those early days, because I wouldn't otherwise like get to work. And so I think mine began much earlier, and then so we did that. And when I turned 27, that's when we began our business. So we co-founded the business, Questworks, with my 4 partners. Raul, Amajit, Dominic, and myself. And it was an accident again. We had done a really good job for Strathmore University, Strathmore Business School. We built the whole of the university. We saved them a lot of money. The buildings won Presidential Green Award. And then I was at that point now, I'm deciding what I had 2 options that I thought about predominantly, mostly because my friends at the time were working at the big 4, so the PwCs, Deloitte of this world, and so I knew that I might want to consider that as a career. But when the moment came to make the decision, I only asked my wife. I said, "Listen, what do you think?" I'm thinking that we begin our business. I don't have necessarily the experience for the industry, but I think we're gonna get to somewhere. And she asked me one question: if you can raise rent for 1 year, you can do whatever you want. Now, luckily, I had a little bit of cash from book sales. So the thing that really helped me is that little writing that we did early on. And so because people kept buying 3,000 copies, 5,000 copies, 1,000 copies, I managed to save a little bit of cash. And that's the cash. I think it was around 300,000 shillings. I said, listen, here, if you could please take the 300,000 shillings, then I can go out there, and we began the company. That's how we began.
Yeah.
So I feel like my pressure began a little bit more. And as I eased towards 30, I barely noticed it because we were just so busy. We were just so busy trying to build the business. So I feel like my pressure began much earlier
Your pressure
than
was
many
much
people.
earlier.
Yeah.
But was the pressure an age pressure, or was the pressure just the life pressure? And I'm trying to distinguish those two because, well, yes, of course, you go through the pressures of if you're the firstborn in the family, you have siblings to take care of. If you get a baby much earlier in your life, you've got another baby to take care of. There's that. And there's what, for example, we hear women talking about. 30 is a defining moment, is a defining age for many women. Because they'll talk about by 30, now I'm thinking I need to start a family, I want to have a baby, or I want to look at my career and start balancing between, the work-life balance. And that's a 30 common thread.
Yeah.
And men at that point usually don't hear that common thread. Is it there in the men that you've interacted with? Not necessarily now the Team Kipchumba experience, but in the men that you've interacted with?
I think it's there. I mean, even for me, I think it's there. I think every man would aspire that by the time they are 40, they are potentially financially independent. Which doesn't necessarily mean much because, financial independence means at least you earn enough not to worry too much about what could potentially happen to you and your family if something happened to you. Because anyway, you never stop working. I think that what people will just do is they probably change what they do. So I think that pressure is there. I mean, even as I'm now turning 38, I mean, I think I feel a little bit of that pressure, and it might have been inspired by that tweet. So I think everyone has that pressure. At least I feel like I have that pressure. What I don't get though, what I think I'm fortunate with is that I think now that we will live long enough, if God gives us life, to really achieve much more down the line. Yeah, I think that is unrealistic to expect that a lot of your success can happen within the proverbial 10,000 hour rule, which is the decade. Yeah, because many people say, okay, in your 20s, you're trying to learn, you're learning under somebody. And then in your 30s, you're executing and earning. And then hopefully by 40, you are potentially you're top of your field and you've taken off. And I think that is not necessarily true for many careers. And there are already so many studies that show that now. I think it was the work of Malcolm Gladwell that popularized the idea that you should have been successful, potentially, by 10,000 hours. But there are a lot more studies that are saying no. A lot of success takes a little bit longer. And in fact, it's okay, even by your 30s, to still be figuring out. Honestly, there is a lot of studies that show that. Not everyone will be like Tiger Woods, like already kicking the ball by 2. By 10 he was already by 8 he was beating his dad at golf. By 18 he was a grandmaster. Not everyone will be like that, honestly. Some people are like Nobel Peace Prize winners who bloom later in life, and they are called the late bloomers or the late specializers. So I think that this variety and even this confusion, if you can just make sense of it, you can develop what people call range. Range meaning,
also positioning yourself. I guess that the challenge then is, how do you tell which one you are? Are you Tiger Woods? Are you Mark Zuckerberg? Are you the guy who succeeds in the 30s? Are you the late bloomer? How do you, because not everybody then should just sit comfortable and say, I still have time. I'm going to hit my 50s and maybe that's the time I'll bloom. Because there's that. How do you tell what kind of character you are?
Yeah. I think that's a difficult conversation. That's really difficult, because even among my friends, I have friends that have done reasonably well for themselves, earning maybe $15,000, and I'm really happy for them. But I don't think every person looking at me today should say, you know what, the guy earns $1 million bob, I don't earn $1 million bob, I'm almost his age, I'm gone.
I'm a failure.
I think that they say generally that if you specialize early, you can make higher income early. If you generalize for a bit too long and not specialize, what ends up happening is that you delay income, more generally speaking. And so if you delay more income, hopefully you are trying to find work that can be more meaningful, that can speak to who you are, because also the predictor for longevity is not just income, it's also, do you like the work? Does the work engage your mind? Does it bring the most out of you? Is it not work? Can you wake up every day and then not feel like you're scared? There were days in the early days when I would worry about Monday. Now I don't notice Monday, so I feel like I'm getting there from the point of view of I enjoy my work. I love what we do. It speaks to me that the work that we do around, say, solar is promoting sustainable energy. The work that we do either in solar and construction employs young people. So I feel engaged now, and so I think that's also like some sort of a backup for me. Like, I'm not successful, I don't have money yet, but I feel like I'm on the right path. Like I'm on the right path. Our book has been read by 300,000 kids. So that sort of makes up for the money, I guess. But I don't think people should be under any pressure at all, because we all have individual journeys, and I think that's a real beautiful thing, with listening to who you are, with potentially learning about yourself, with journaling, and then hopefully being grateful. And then, while you are still ambitious, also remember that sometimes the journey takes a little bit longer.
How about those that, throughout this, let's say the 30s decade, they think that they're taking off, and then something drastic happens and it just sets them back many years back.
Yeah.
It's a career that was just taking off, and then you lose the job in a scandalous way that takes you back. It hits you hard. You were just taking off in the family, and your marriage doesn't work. You are taking off in business, and then the business suffers a catastrophic collapse.
Yeah.
At that point,
what happens?
What do you tell them? Because the clock is still ticking.
Yeah. The proverbial clock is still ticking. It shouldn't be ticking, honestly. I mean, Warren Buffett they say most of his wealth was acquired post 90 years, post 60 years. 90% of his wealth came after 60th birthday. Unfortunately, of course, the people that are closer to us are people like Mark Zuckerberg, Cristiano Ronaldo, and all these young people. And that was the cornerstone of my tweet, that the average entrepreneur is 42, 45 years based on a lot of empirical studies. Okay? The average successful entrepreneur is not a 23-year, 22-year-old. It's actually 42, 44, 45. Because at that moment, you have all these skills right under you. You have a good brand. If you've been a good person, people can trust you. You can make phone calls, and you can rely on people. People can rely on you. You have domain expertise, which means that you are less likely to make mistakes that people can make. And I think there is a chance that you can rebound. I mean, in 2016 was one of our worst business year. We had more than 100% sales dip.
Wow.
We had a non-payment of more than 200 million Kenya shillings. Like, it just nearly sank our company. Thank God, by providence, the same year is the year that I got selected as a Mandela Washington Fellow, and then I got selected as a top 40 under 40. And so what ended up happening is that because I became public, while I had all these other problems, like being added to more than 200 WhatsApp groups back up country, and I could not send money, it raised my profile a little bit, and people called me, and we got more than 50 million shillings worth of contracts that saved our company. So that was by providence. But I really think, I don't really have the answer. I think that's precisely why we as men, and more generally as human beings, should be willing to anticipate and expect that failure can actually be part of our life. So that, and I think it's also an expectations thing. And even it's clear to me that, let's say we have debt in our company. It's clear to me that if we don't make sales and don't make then we can make debt payments, and we might potentially lose a portion or maybe a part, or at worst, everything that we have. But then what's really comforting, at least for many builders and for builders and entrepreneurs, is that what's now clear, at least for an entrepreneur or someone that is trying to build a craft that requires you building, what's clear now is that the average entrepreneur will fail, but the average business will fail, the average business enterprise will fail, but the average entrepreneur will succeed. So that's really comforting.
It's not about the business. It's about you, the entrepreneur.
Exactly. So the average business that you begin today will fail. Meaning, on a scale of 1 to 10 businesses that you do, more than at least 50% will fail. But then the average entrepreneur will succeed, which means that then the most important skill is persistence, is rebounding back. Actually, they even say it. I think there's a whole book on it, that entrepreneurship is persistence dividend. It's really just like that ability to just come again and start, and then keep back. And then always figuring out what are the lessons in failures, where is the rainbow in this tragedy. And then I think now, increasingly, if you're open about it, people even like that more, which is surprising. People actually like the fact that you've been through that, which is really refreshing, because it was only in Silicon Valley that failure, I don't think it's completely accepted in Kenya. In Silicon Valley, they would hire you precisely because you failed once or twice. Like, they put a premium on you because you failed once or twice or 3 times. I think we are still a long way in Africa to realize that the most important investment that an entrepreneur has already made are the failures that they've already had.
The experiences that they've gone through.
Then that entrepreneur is less assuming. That entrepreneur is likely to be more trustworthy. That entrepreneur is likely to be more cautious. That entrepreneur will ask questions better. And I think that's also true for our lives. I wish we could apply a little bit more of that to even our lives, to say, there is a chance that we might face setbacks and we can rebound. In my case, when Dad had that road accident, I think it's my faith that kept me through, and then the love of all those people that came to check on us. Yeah, and all those people that came, went and visited that. I think that really kept me going and kept us through, because we would always have visitors every so often, whether it's from church or from the village, people that were not necessarily related to me, people that walked with my dad. It's a testament in part to
his legacy as well.
to his legacy, but it's also a great testament to generally how good we human beings in most cases can be. And so that happened in, say, 1996, and then about some share of failure. We lost a big farm. It was the biggest farm in North Rift. The off-taker, who I don't want to say their name, refused to come and buy the stock. And so what ended up happening is that we were accumulating so many pigs in the farm. We ran out of working capital to continue feeding them. We lost the farm. I've lost money through a wheat farm, and my friends' money at that. And so loss is part of life.
Loss
but
and
I think,
failure is...
But I think if we can learn, and I think we can anticipate the possibility of failure, and then prepare at least our minds, because it's normally the minds. Yeah, many people can rebuild from nothing, but I think it's if your heart shuts down and your mind says, no, this is the end of it, I think that's most likely the end of it. But we have the ability as human beings to pick ourselves up, and so there are better stories than Enterprise. I mean, there are people that have survived Holocaust. There are people that have survived war. There are people. I mean, we in Elgeyo Marakwet we are cattle rustling, and people keep fighting every day to rebuild again.
You survive daily adversities. Tim, I think the bottom line, what you're saying is just focus on the gains and just keep going. Focus on the gains. Stop looking at the clock. Yeah, the clock is there, it's ticking, but just focus on what have you achieved today? What have you learned today? Like you keep journaling and saying, this is what I have been able to do today. This is what I've not been able to do today. And this is the lesson that I've learned today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We overestimate what we can do in a day, in a year. We terribly underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. And so then the most important thing is to build some level of discipline for every day, to have a rally, a group of people that can come with you. And then you will be surprised, what you can potentially achieve in a year, and especially in a decade.
Asante sana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
So there you have it. As Tim Kipchumba says, it's not about that clock and how fast or slowly it's ticking. It's about your own experiences in life. So in this series, as we ask ourselves in MANCAVE, what are men facing that biological clock? The answer could be yes. The answer could be no. But the main thing is, what are you doing about the everyday as you head towards every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade? Thank you for watching MANCAVE.